On this episode of Midnight Garage, I'm putting a trunk floor and mini tubs in this Chevy 2. Hey, welcome back everybody. So, if you've been following along with the 70 Charger project, it is pretty well ready to go home to the customer for some mechanical assembly. So I'm done with it for now. So I've dragged in the next one, or the next couple, I guess. So this is the one we're going to be focusing on here. So this is, I believe it's a 64 Chevy 2. And what we're going to be doing on this isn't like a complete body and paint restoration. We're going to be doing kind of a structural restoration on it first off. So, customer wants to build a cool little big horsepower street machine out of this car. So the first thing we're going to be doing will be trunk floor, dropouts, back panel. I'll show you guys under the car once I get it up in the air a bit. I couldn't get complete frame rails for this car. The frame rails are a little rusty in the back. It must be common because they make these repair pieces. So we're going to see how that works out. This car is also getting the wide rear wheel tubs, so that gives it a bunch of room to put big tires on, same as we did on the Charger. If you followed along on this, we did the wider tubs on this one. And we're also doing just these floor sections in the driver compartment. Now, these particular floor patches the customer bought for this car in 1992. So that's pretty cool. He's had this car forever. So, as you can see, this car is really, really solid because it's been parked for a really long time. It is soft up here, but yeah, honestly, there's nothing really terrible. So we are just going to be putting those front sections in. And that'll be about it on this one, I believe. We'll see kind of as we go along. Actually, you can see, he said he had a tire come off one time. So it's rolled up that quarter panel. The other side is rusty. But he also cut these pieces off a parts car, probably back around that same time. So that's pretty cool. That you know, from a time where you could cut rust-free panels off a 64 Chevy. So anyway, I'm going to get this car up on some jack stands and we'll kind of start surveying where we're going to start. So here we are, car up in the air. Let's have a look underneath. So, obviously, trunk floor, we know that needs to be replaced. That's straightforward. Now these frame rails, here's what I was talking about. You can see this one's going to go quite a bit beyond what that repair piece is going to do, that's for sure. But the rest is looking pretty good. But that'll be easy enough to make that longer. So I think I'll start with getting the rear bumper off and doing some of this dirty work. And then we'll come back and see what we're gonna cut first. Okay, so rear bumper is off the car. Bolts came out. No problem at all, without any swearing. If you believe that, I have a bridge for sale. So, I'm gonna start cutting this trunk floor out of here. Okay, so there is the bulk of the floor out of the car. So, the reason I do it like that, I just get all the stuff out of the way. Now this is still spot welded to the frame rails. All those spot welds need to be drilled, but it's easier just to get the bulk of the crap out of the way. That way I can get right in there and work on it. And you can see too that this is, or was, a one-piece trunk floor. So this is all one piece right to the sides. Because we're not putting quarter panels on this car, or I don't believe we are, we wouldn't have been able to fit a one-piece trunk floor in there. So that's why I went with the three-piece style. So this way we can slip the main pan in, and then the sides will go in. But I did just notice that these fuel tank braces for the bottom of the floor are not on the new floor, so I didn't know that they wouldn't come with it, so I'm gonna have to look into that, see if I can get those right away. Well, I guess I kind of bucked this one off, but yeah, these are pretty rotten. I don't think we'd be reusing those anyway. So anyway, I'm gonna continue on with doing some trimming, and then we will, it's almost the end of the day, but we'll come back for another look. All right, well, there's a little bit of progress for today. It's the end of the day now, so I'm just kind of getting cleaned up. But that gives you an idea what we're after. We're going to get everything cleaned up. These surfaces will all get prepped up nice and clean for welding too. Yeah, we got a long ways to go before we get to that. Only one injury, which actually happened walking to my toolbox, not working on the car, because I'm a dumbass. Anyway, yeah, we'll get back to this tomorrow, and we will keep digging and grinding and cutting until we figure out where we're going to stop. So as I'm cutting away here, you saw me kind of briefly drilling out the spot welds. Now, if you haven't watched my videos before, you can get the fancy spot weld cutters. I have them. I typically will just go with a large drill bit. Drill just part way through. You don't want to drill all the way through, but you can see where I've drilled to, and that releases that spot weld. I find it works just as good as those cutters. They're kind of a pain in the ass because you have to drill a pilot hole for them anyway. But what I brought you guys in here to see, now just to show you actually how solid this little car is. You look at all these inner panels. So these trunk dropouts are incredible. It is rusted through a little tiny bit in the bottom, but I never see this on cars I work on. But this car has been parked for 30 years. Now, this side was a little different, but customer said he had lost a tire, so it folded everything up underneath here, so it pretty much destroyed everything on this side. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see how solid all this stuff is. Even the wheel houses are good. Now that's another thing. So we are going to be putting in the wide wheel houses in this car to make room for big tires. So I'm not sure how much wider they are, but we'll get into all of this. But Just to kind of show you guys, if you're thinking about tackling that job, what you're up against. It's not as simple as just throwing the wheelhouse in. So, as you can see, now the trunk latch or the hinge supports, they weld to this wheelhouse, and then that back seat support. So that's gonna have to be trimmed for the wider wheelhouse. What I did on the last one of these I did on the Charger, I just drilled out the spot welds and took this brace off. And then once the wheelhouse was in, figured out where these wanted to live, then I just made a piece in there. The new trunk floor is going to have to be narrowed to fit because those wheelhouses are going to come in. I'm not sure if they just, I'm assuming they're just going to come to the frame rail. But like I said, we'll get to that later. But just to give you an idea, and then this, you know, this part of the trunk floor that we're not replacing, it's also going to have to be trimmed for the wheelhouses. So it is kind of a lot more than just throwing them in. Actually, I'll show you. On the Charger, just kind of for reference. So I put the big wide wheelhouses in this one. So there's the brackets I made just to weld the hinge supports in place. And this was also a new trunk floor that I had to cut the trunk floor, and I actually just moved it over and then welded the flange back on. And the same, the front part of the trunk floor is actually still original, so I trimmed all that back. So, just gives you an idea, but I'll go over it the best I can once we actually get to doing it on this car. So, I was just emptying out the box from the mini tubs so I could put all my scrap metal in it. Injured myself again. And realized in the bottom of the box there was a envelope with all this stuff in it. So they actually give you, I guess this is a Detroit Speed kit. They give you all these templates to cut out and show you where to cut and stuff, and some other pieces of metal that I'm not sure where they go yet. So that makes it easy. Other than that, all work should be performed by a qualified welder and technician. So I might have to bring someone in for that. Hey, so we're inside the car here now. I'm gonna start prepping up to cut out these factory wheelhouses. So now that I realize I've got an instruction manual and templates with this thing, I'm gonna use those. So I've cut out this template, and I'll kind of show you guys how it goes. I've already marked that side. See if I can put the camera somewhere here that will maybe work. It took me a couple minutes to figure out the instructions and how this is supposed to be, but line up with that line, line up down in there. So she's pretty straightforward. I managed to find the Sharpie that sort of works, so good enough for me. So there's where we're trimming, so that's where the new wheel toe is going to come into. So I'm going to buzz that out, and then we'll just kind of roughly buzz this wheelhouse out. Yeah, I was just kind of rough cut everything out in the beginning until we get it out, then we can trim and fine tune everything. So I'm going to start with trimming that, and then we'll come back and have another looky. So I've got that brace cut out. See that one there on that side. So it wasn't too bad, other than whoever was running the old spot welder in 1962 went complete overkill on the spot that was really hard to get to. So anyway, whatever, not a big deal. So So that piece will be welded back in after, but for now it's completely out of the way. So next we are going to trim the floor. So it comes with this nifty little template. If you had a good trunk floor, you would just keep going around and trim the trunk floor. I'm not going to put the new trunk floor in yet because I'm actually waiting on a back panel for this still. So we'll continue on with where we're at here. So I'm going to mark this off and start cutting. Okay, there's another big nasty hole in the car. So it's going to take a whole bunch of trimming and messing around, but let's have a look and see what the next step is. Okay guys, just so another quick look inside the car here before I move on to the next step. So I have trimmed up the remainder of this wheelhouse, ground this smooth because that's the mating surface we're going to be welding this to. So I'm going to move on to narrowing that frame rail. So I've jumped ahead a little bit on you guys here. So I have trimmed out this frame rail. So there is the outside of the frame rail right there. And I'll point out too, I do have the car completely squared up. It's on axle stands in the middle. I have adjustable jacks on the back of the frame rails, and the front of the car is on its suspension, so everything is square. Having a level across these frame rails is dead on, and I'll keep an eye on that. So what the idea here is now, I've got a bunch of trimming to do on that rail still, but you want to follow the contour of what's been cut here for the tub, and it's going to match on the frame rail. And then there is a, where did I put it, a box in piece so this guy here is going to fill that. You put a little bit of a roll there to come out to match up with that. So we'll do some more trimming. We'll get this guy installed. And I wanted to point out too, I did watch a video last night by Detroit Speed on YouTube. So if you're watching me do this for a how-to, consider this one more for entertainment or just an average guy doing it. You know, if you're actually doing this, go on to Detroit Speed's YouTube channel and watch their videos, because they're, well, obviously a lot better than mine for the how-to part. So that being said, I'm going to keep trimming and see where we end up. And now another thing I'll just point out on this. So as you can see, oh, my camera's getting up there. So these frame rails are pretty wasted in the back. I am still leaving that for later. So I showed you guys in the beginning, I've got these repair pieces for the frame rails. So they're only going to come to about here. And then I'm just going to rebuild, you know, from here up, because that's an easy enough channel to make. And I've got a nice sheet of 16 gauge here that'll be perfect for that. So I'm going to move on to some more trimming for that tub, and hopefully we'll get that one kind of tucked into place and see how it's going to fit. And then we'll do it all over again on this side. Alright, so with our frame rail trimmed back, the wheel tub is sitting in place where it belongs now. So you can see it's a really nice fit along that outer wheelhouse flange that it's going to be welded to. And we're a nice tight fit to the floor in here, but there still will be a little trimming, and I'm going to need to weld up that frame rail so it's got something to weld against. And then we'll be making a flange around this area so it's got a spot to weld to. So we are looking good so far. So I'll come in here and show you guys as best I can what we've done with the frame rail. So that section has been cut out. Now here's the piece that comes with the kit. So I just stuck it in the brake, put a little bit of a roll on the end there. Set the camera here somewhere. Hopefully you can see that. So I've prepped this up so it's going to sit just on top of that lip in the frame rail. It's going to make it nice for welding. You can see it actually comes, it's got that little dimple there. It actually goes right to the factory spot on the floor. So that's going to fit right there. So I'm happy with that. I trimmed it. I trimmed the frame rail, as you can see there, about 3/8 too much. So that is not a big deal. I can make a little piece in there. That's the nice thing about metal. It's easy enough to put it back. So I'm gonna start welding this thing in there. Actually, it fits real nice, so I am very happy with that. So there is our one frame rail welded up. Now, like I pointed out earlier, I trimmed just a little too much, so I'm gonna have to make a small piece there and a small piece there, but that's minor. That's easy stuff. So that worked out well. I'll show you how narrow this frame rail is now. So there's only 3/4 of an inch of frame rail. It kind of widens as we go down this way, but that is okay. So yeah, I've got the level on there, and the rails are still perfect. So these tubs are going to become very structural now. Of course, this is a unibody car, no frame. The frame is part of the structure. So everything is structural in these cars. But now that we haven't really taken strength out of the frame rail, we've taken width out of it, but we've put everything back. And then this is going to be this tub will be welded solid along here and around that whole top perimeter. So yeah, that becomes a much more structural part of the car than it was before. So I think at this point, before I even start on that side, I think I'm going to start seeing if I can repair this frame rail. This back panel, I thought I had ordered it, but what I got was this top part, which is fine, I'll put that in anyway, but I need this whole piece along the bottom, so I've got that ordered. I just don't know how long it'll take to get here. So I think I'm going to move on to repairing this frame rail. I'd like to get that kind of solid. I can cut it off of this back panel, and then the new one I'll just clamp on there for the time being. And yeah, anyway, I'm going to start messing around with that. And I'll kind of periodically show you guys where I'm at with it. So I'll bring you guys in for another look here at what I've got going on. So I've started putting in these repair pieces. Now I can't weld anything at the back because, like I said before, we're waiting on that back panel. Now this is the bad frame rail. probably be rebuilding the other one too. The rest is solid. See, if you look at the inside of these things, I think they're actually galvanized. They look perfect other than where the moisture sat down in there. And like I said at the beginning of this, I tried to get full frame rails, but they were not available. So, I've started making up these plates. Hold on, put you guys up there. So, those will be the repair pieces. Got one for each side. I'm going to put those together and then basically, let's turn you guys over this way. So basically what I'll be doing is figuring out that width. I'll make a cap for that and weld it on. So I couldn't put it in the sheet metal brake and put those edges on. They're going to need to be welded on because obviously this is contoured, it's curved. It's not a straight piece. So I haven't bothered filming, you know, cutting out metal and pissing around, but I'll just periodically bring you in for a look. So here's my frame rail repair. There's a jig I made up. Turns out a rough cut 2x6 is a perfect width. So I'm just going to weld this top cap on, and then we'll come back to it. Alright, there's our frame rail repair. Welds are a little funky in places. My welder was being funny there, but ended up working good. So I'll let that cool off and we'll give her a fit. So here's the thing, guys. I thought that turned out pretty nice. Looks like a chunk of frame rail. Well, turns out I capped the wrong side. It was supposed to be the bottom, not the top. I'm only showing you that because it seems like people love it when I screw up. That's when I get all the comments with the LOL. But I think it's going to work out just the same. I think I'll just cap that side, put it in place, and then I can just put a flat piece right over top instead of building those flanges on. So just a little extra work, but whatever, not the end of the world. Okay, so there is the frame rail piece that I made. Now that I've capped the bottom, not the top. So that should work. Welder was working a little better finally. It was a little funky on the top, but the welds look good on that one, so let her cool off and we'll try fitting it. Alright, so there is today's progress. I'm going to end it here for today. So we made the frame rail piece. I've got that in place, so I'm happy with that. Fits real nice. Tomorrow I will make some flanges off the sides, weld them on. So that's pretty straightforward. And a little bit of finishing up in the frame rail that we narrowed. So yeah, this frame rail we narrowed up here today. Just a couple of little pieces like I showed you earlier. We'll get those tidied up. And then this side will be, well, pretty much done. There's not a lot left to do on this side. So then we'll move on to the other side, which I probably won't record because I showed you this side. And then we'll move on to the trunk floor. So that's going to need to be narrowed for the tubs. So that'll be the next thing. Okay, so I've moved ahead here a little bit. So here's the side we're working on. So we've got the rebuilt frame rail. We have the wheel tub in place. Wheel tubs are not welded. They're just sitting in there for now. So I've gone ahead and gotten this side done. Well, not done, but in place. Everything trimmed out. The frame rail is narrowed. So once they're welded, I still need to attach these trunk hinge supports to the tubs. So I'll need to make some pieces in there. So there's our narrowed frame rail. Same thing on this side. I still just need to make a little piece up in there. And so there's a view from inside the car. So you can see, well, I guess you can't really without it before, so this side here, so this right there is before, so you can see there was no room for wider tires really. But now I'm gonna pull this tub out and I'll show you guys how much room we have in there now. So I'll set the camera down for a minute. We'll be right back. Okay, so there it is with the tire jammed back in place. Yeah, tire's a little crooked. It's not bolted on, just sitting on there. So you can see that we have a ton more room now for tire. Then we've got a bit of room on that side, but I guess that was like that before. So once we get around to putting the narrowed 9-inch in, then he's going to have all kinds of tire room in here. And so this car is going to be getting a whole TCI rear suspension and a narrowed Curry 9-inch. So the springs will be getting moved in and narrow diff, and then yeah, then there'll be lots of room. So I figured I'd show you guys that. So I think what I'm going to do, just for the sake of time, I don't want this video dragging on too long, I think I'm going to end this one here. And what I will do is we'll just call this part 1. We'll come back and do a part 2 when I'm ready to do the trunk floor and dropouts and all the rest of it. It does turn out I'm going to be putting quarter panels on this car, or possibly partials. I'm not 100% sure. Customer had supplied these pieces that I showed you earlier. I mean, he's had these years and years and years, and I actually thought they were really good. I thought they were going to be just fine, but I dusted the inside with the sandblaster and it just immediately blew through. So that, rust was a lot thicker in there than I realized. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe if you're interested in seeing part 2, where I will, like I say, I'll do the trunk floor and whatever else we get to, probably quarter panels, and then eventually I should be doing the rear suspension narrow differential. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And like I say in all these videos, if you've watched this long, watch the Detroit Speed video if you're doing this. I do think sometimes it's good to watch someone like me do it, that's kind of real world with, you know, not the best tools and, you know, more average guy. But yeah, and like I always say, I am not the expert at anything. I'm just sharing what I do. I share it for my customers. I share it for you guys, so it may help you guys out a little bit. And yeah, so again, thanks for watching. I hope you come back and check out the next one.